Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. I am most looking forward to this panel. We've had an amazing day so far of just learning about how to just focus on some of our best qualities and what some of our best traits and attributes are, how to kind of handle being in this state of no control and the uncertainty that is COVID-19. So we are just really excited to have everyone here today to just chat with us. Everyone on this panel, Devin and I really feel like are experts in their field and industry. And so I'm just really excited for them to share with you some of their knowledge. So Devin, I'll let you go ahead and start with your intro.
All right. Well, I hope everyone had a great lunch break with the Zumba and our cooking demo. I invited a couple of people, like Marty mentioned, that I believe are industry experts to kind of give us a snapshot about what's going on in their specific respective field, and then kind of how they've dealt with things, which will open up a discussion for our roundtable moving forward. So I have Lee Janetti Byers from District Maven.
Hi.
He comes to us from Miami, Florida, but she has clients all over, mainly on the East Coast. Lee owns and operates a marketing firm specializing in branding and digital media. And then also I've invited Warren Deedle from Puff and Stuff Catering, which is based, they have two locations, one in Orlando and one in Tampa. Both are leaders in the field of catering, but then also at the precipice of being experts of hospitality kind of as a whole. So thank you for being here, Warren. We're looking forward to hearing from you. And then also I've invited Charles Moran. He's going to be hopping on here shortly in a bit. He is a political consultant. Often you will see him on CNN, Fox News, giving insight on LGBTQ agenda in the political realm of things. But he's here to kind of give us a snapshot about what's going on in his world as far as political and government consulting is concerned. So really excited to hear from those.
Great. And so I'm really looking forward to chatting with probably my first friend in LA when I moved here almost 8 years ago, Ida Sophia Koivuniemen. I love saying her name. Ida is the founder of Evil Queen. So all of you that are good friends of mine have received a candle from Ida at one point or another.
Mine was confiscated at the airport.
In Mexico. That is
in Mexico.
And
that would happen to you, Zevin.
Yeah, and that's Bachelorette weekend. We'll leave that there. But Ida has really just started this candle company from her kitchen, and it has grown into an amazing little empire. And so just really glad to bring her and just hear more about her pivot. She also is an author. She has 2 books out now, books of poetry, her work. So we've been talking to a lot of writers. So I think that's going to be great to kind of pick her brain on those things. And then another close friend of mine is Whitney Stringer. She is the owner of Whitney Stringer PR. She has been in public relations for over 15 years in Washington, D.C. All things food, health, wellness, really focusing on small businesses, really kind of helping give them a voice and giving especially minority business owners a platform so that we can learn more about them. So being here in this space that we are with the pandemic, I think that all of us are entrepreneurs as well. So it'll be really great to hear what Whitney's kind of dealing with her clients and how she's assisting them. I've got literally all my favorite people here. Deanna Dorsey is also with us. She is the founder of District of Clothing. So this is obviously the time of the Black Lives Movement gaining so much traction. You have seen her shirts. They have that Trust Black Women tag that you've probably seen on Instagram all over the place. She was just on Good Morning America last week with her line of focusing on common purpose, which she launched right during when COVID just kicked off. So just excited to talk to her about how her business has evolved during this time and her own personal pivot. And then lastly, Ryan Mazie. This is my +1 always in LA for all of our lovely Hollywood events. He is the Director of Development at Jane Doe Films. He has his current project right now on the record has premiered at Sundance this past January, and it is now on HBO Max. So really looking forward to talking to him about just what's happening in the film and entertainment industry. I want to know what we're doing because it's seeming like we have no idea. So I think it's just going to be we're going to cover everything. Oh, and I think we just had our last panelist hop on in. Charles is here. Hey, Charles.
Hi, Charles. Thank you for being here.
This is audio. Can you hear us, Charles? Maybe so. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started and we'll have him work on his audio. Okay, so let's kick it off. I feel like, we gave a little bit of an intro, but want to hear just a little bit more how all of you kind of got started. I know that for some of you, there's been pivots to where you kind of are now. So I'd love to hear, Ryan, I know that you started in this industry as a publicist. So talk to us a little bit about how you wound up now being a producer, head of development.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was definitely a pivot. I was doing publicity for pretty much the better half of my career so far. I'm out here, still have a hand in it. And I used to work on the studio side of things, and I found myself in a place where I was between jobs. So I started freelancing and starting my own kind of company as an interim thing. And some of the personal clients I had doing PR for, Amy Zirin and Kirby Dick, they're these amazing filmmakers that did The Hunting Ground, The Invisible War. They were looking to grow the company at the time, and they asked if I could help on a project which evolved to be On the Record, which is out now. And yeah, for me, it was just kind of seizing the opportunity when it came, and being in a place where I was just open and receptive to it, and going down that path of producing. So I guess it was more or less a natural sort of snowball into it. But yeah.
Sure. I think that's the thing that I've heard a lot is that, when we're hearing this word pivot, the actual meaning of pivot is that your one foot is still staying in place. So it's not a complete, new, career or feeling like you just have to find, something completely different, but you are still staying rooted in, whatever it is that drives you or that you, are passionate about. And it's just finding ways to kind of just weave and ebb and flow, a little bit within that space, which I think is exactly, what you were saying has happened with you.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's about not really closing the door, but kind of opening even wider to have more opportunities to come through, and just being receptive to the people around you that you want to align yourself with, and try to boost them up as they boost you too. It's definitely a growing opportunity when you pivot, just for kind of almost everyone involved.
Yeah.
And Lee, can you tell us a little bit about how you got started and kind of where things have come from you? Because I know early on in your career, you've pivoted even without COVID-19 as well.
So I was actually going to say, when you guys were talking about, pivoting into kind of snowballing into something you didn't expect, kind of that's my story. I started coding and designing websites when I was 16. So think back to the days of MySpace. when everything that you wanted to do that was cool to any of your profiles was HTML coded. And my mom always told me, go get off the computer, go read a book. And I just didn't listen to her. So I started my company when I was in college, and originally it was for lawyers. I thought it was going to be a part of a much bigger job. That I had graduated, I had enough revenue to support myself living in DC full time, which was awesome. But even during that time, I kind of realized, my interest wasn't really in law. It was more in the hospitality and lifestyle sector in that space. And over time, as Devin said, pivoted in the industries that I work with. And now that's my entire client base. However, I think it's kind of interesting because I feel in digital marketing, I've always been pivoting. There's been one stream of algorithm changes after another, back from Penguin to Panda back in the day when it comes to your SEO and content strategy. And truly what matters is you have to keep your foundation strong of what what works. And when you pivot, you're looking at an evolutionary process. I think that's something of course, nobody expected the widespread devastation in all senses of the word that COVID brought. But if you're an entrepreneur, I feel like you're constantly pivoting, and that's more to be seen as evolutionary growth. And I think that's a more positive way to think about it. But digital marketing focused, and just celebrated my company's 12th birthday on the 12th.
Congratulations.
So.
Congratulations.
Thank you guys. Thank you.
It's interesting that Lee's point just about how as entrepreneurs we're always pivoting, but I wanted to hear from Warren and Ida because, I feel like the pandemic, when everything kind of got shut down, I know that Ida's business, her warehouse had to completely close. And so shipments of all orders, literally everything just kind of stopped. Obviously with the hospitality industry, events were canceled. I had an event in March that it was supposed to be that Saturday, and it was just kind of like over. And so just want to hear from both of you just about that experience and how it's been.
Who wants to go first?
Rita, ladies first.
All right.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, so like Marty said, I own a candle company, and during the shutdown in Los Angeles, when all non-essential businesses had to close, that included my warehouse. So we went from, having hundreds of orders a day, and, right before we shut down, we had a huge influx of orders, and we had like 12 hours notice, and then the city was like, you can't operate anymore. So we were, kind of in a panic a little bit at first, because
understandably so.
We had like 900 orders in our queue that still had to ship. And I was like, oh my gosh, when are these people going to get their candles, So that was a really interesting challenge for me as a business owner, because I had to make some tough decisions. I had to send a bunch of emails, hope that people read them, hope that people weren't going to be upset. But yeah, what I ended up doing was, me and my one employee who I've had for a really long time, we ended up bringing a lot of stuff back to my house and shipping things out of my house. So over the course of the month, we got everything done, but it was almost like we had to work twice, more than twice as hard, because we're trying to do the jobs of 10 people between the two of us. So that was a really interesting thing. It kind of brought me back to the days, like Marty said, I started in my kitchen, but I haven't run Evil Queen out of my house for many years. So it was definitely interesting. And I think it just proves that, like you were saying with entrepreneurs, we have such a go-getter spirit, and we're always trying to figure out the next best move. And it would have been really easy to just be like, oh, well, this sucks and we're just shut down and I'm just sad or whatever. But that was never my attitude. I was like, how can I make this work? And then how can I make it so that it's even better in the future, so that if we do have to shut down again, it won't be so detrimental to my business. And that's something that I've been working on. And long story short, Evil Queen's eventually moving to a distribution center to have them ship out our products instead of me. So something like this did happen again, which it might, second wave and all that. So just trying to be proactive in that sense. And yeah.
It's great. Hello, everyone. I guess giving my story back, I think, Lee, you and I were living similar parallel lives early on, although I think I did
Yeah.
I was 16 a lot earlier than you were. So, I've kind of always had that entrepreneurial spirit. And so I started a car detailing business that was very successful on my parents' driveway, so much so by the time I graduated high school, I had multiple employees, opened up a shop, and it was a great, very big success for many years. I then moved into the family business, which was great. Did that for many years, left in the mid 90s and went to work for Disney and had a great career in international sales in the weddings business. For those of you that know my dear friend Rebecca Reynolds, we worked alongside each other for many, many years. And that was a really incredible time. My last year at Disney, I spent with the Disney Institute, which was on the business development side. So we worked with corporate America and really corporate global, that companies wanted to come together and benchmark what Disney did, everything from their approach to leadership, people management, supply chain innovation, and so on and so forth. And so I got to really see and understand the secret sauce of what makes that company tick, which it's amazing, and it's a very special sauce. So I left there, came back to work with my folks in '02, and successfully acquired the company from my folks in '03, and have had it ever since. We've had an incredible tear of growth, even through 2008, 2009, when the economy was really struggling. We chose to go bullish on the economy and double down and opened an office in Tampa. I'm in our Tampa office today, actually, and expanded there, and really built a company with a great culture that is kind of developed and built around our team. We had a very large team as of March 13th. When the world changed, and we've been growing it ever since. We've pivoted several times. We pivot constantly in our world.
Right, and hospitality, that's what we do daily.
Yeah, we're always looking for different opportunities. So we even have other companies that have stemmed and spurred off of the catering industry, supporting the industry. So we have another company called Chef's Commissary that specifically focuses on the food service industry. Sadly for us, that company also was severely hit. That was shuttered for literally 2 months, but it's interesting. We're providing food to theme parks and to big hotels. And what's interesting now, that company is literally taking off like a rocket all of a sudden, because as people start getting back to work, there's not as much labor in the back of house kitchens. So they're looking to manufacturers like us to come back. So it's interesting. I'm seeing that sector come back a lot faster than the catering sector. Although I am starting to see some light, which is great, in the tunnel, which I'm really excited about. Ready to get back to work.
Hopefully all of us will soon, and maybe after this awesome day, we can all find our new, calling and get back to work as well. Charles, can you touch on a little bit about how, I'm sure that you're actually very busy during this time, considering that your realm of expertise is political and government consulting and fundraising. Tell us a little bit about some of the challenges that you've experienced through this, or that some of your clients have experienced, and how you're helping them.
Right. Thank you all so much for having me on, and I'm sorry for being a few minutes late. I'm playing Zoom tag today from call to call to call. So I have two primary clients. One exists in the political space, and the other one is in the nonprofit space. For my nonprofit client, I was actually in the process of launching a $75 million capital campaign for a STEM nonprofit in Colorado that has a national reach. So we've had to put our plans on hold, although luckily we had not launched a campaign and are actively trying to fundraise. We're still in the creation phase. But this organization is one that relies on a lot of revenue from basically a trade show and conference that goes on. So there's a lot of people who have had to experience that their revenue sources have completely dried up. And about a month into COVID, it became very clear that our conference was not going to be able to happen. So when organizations who have traditionally relied on one source of funding, or like one major gala or one major week of fundraising activities, have realized that all of that went away, they have to get very nimble about diversifying their funding sources. So in that regard, I actually today just got promoted as a contractor to be an acting VP of development for this nonprofit, which is again kind of wild. No
Congratulations!
Money, thank you. But there was a very quick realization that there was going to have to be, you know, a renewed sense of awareness around fundraising. But rich people still have money. People still have money. The global slowdown and pandemic has affected the middle to bottom tier of people, but there is still wealth. So it's just about how we go about it differently and reaching those people and tapping into that. So on the nonprofit side, on the political side, everything's been pushed back. Everything's being done differently. And as a result of that, I was actually supposed to have a 600-person gala tomorrow night here in Washington, D.C. Clearly, I had to pull the plug on that several months ago, the minute that things shut down. We don't know here in Washington, D.C. if we're even going to be able to do events of more than 100 people for the remainder of the year, quite honestly. That's what I'm hearing from folks as I'm trying to, A, plan something at the White House next week, and B, also plan potentially a gala later this year, or move my event back. And I'm just being told, like, just don't plan on any in-person major events. They just won't give you certificates of occupancy. So it's similar to some of the other comments that have been made about, you know, learning how to connect with your customers and connect with your constituents. Everything that we're doing, you know, traditionally in politics and campaigns, you know, the door knocking and the face-to-face voter interaction, you will not be able to do that. People are going to be very wary about opening their doors. And this goes into a lot of you who have sales and marketing plans that you're trying to execute. We are going to have to pivot to all digital, all mail, all phone, all, you know, second or third degree touches versus that one-to-one communication that we know is so important when doing voter outreach and communication. So that pivot is being made by all organizations and campaigns and entities that flowed into this. So, you know, maybe this was something that was going to be happening sooner or later. Just again, the ease of technology and the different ways that we persuade and communicate. But it's definitely had an impact. I miss our service providers. I miss the people who are an integral part of our events management staff and our colleagues because they are people too. You know, I want to be able to spend the money that I have to support the people in my communities and my constituencies. And we're just learning how to do that differently and just being nimble. Trying to figure out exactly how I can best use the resources that I have to be able to support the people in my community and how organizationally we do that and what the responsibility to our community is.
One thing I think has been, I was going to say, one thing I think has been particularly difficult, especially most of my clients are in the Washington, D.C. area. That's where I was for predominantly my entire career. And I think one thing that's been difficult for us as well, navigating this is, for example, I have catering clients that are located in Arlington, in Fairfax, but they cater to Washington, D.C. out into Maryland. So it's really kind of battling against multiple states and what they're opening and what that allows and kind of working within that system. But really everything to echo that has gone completely digitally, especially with when it comes to ordering online for large scale events. I see some action of people wanting to do smaller ones, getting back together, especially on the hospitality catering side. But it really is kind of difficult to navigate because everybody's threshold is a little bit different and state-wise as well.
Warren, did you want to chime in on that, just with what's going on with live events in the state of Florida? Is it looking like similar to DC?
It's not a complete shutdown. It's definitely starting to happen. The challenge is, just as Lee said, it's all small. It's all small social events and weddings. Weddings are still continuing, but you know the challenge is the 450-person blowout wedding experience is now a 30-person wedding in their beautiful backyard, and they're doing virtual connection to their guests all over the world. So that's been the big challenge here. That being said, I think that's what's happening now. I do feel that it is going to continue to propel forward. We're seeing numbers significantly lower than what they traditionally were, but we are seeing an incredible rise from what we were, basically just since it's opened. To give an example, our revenues for the month of June literally doubled from what we forecasted at the beginning of June to where we are today. And actually just heard from our sales director that it may actually go up another another 25 to 50% again before the end of the month. So there's a lot of stuff that's coming very, very short term, but it's coming in rapid fire. We focused very hard on really maintaining relevance within our community. We're not going to make money doing family meals or delivering and servicing people in their homes, but we stayed relevant and stayed connected to them through our social channels. And I think it's paying great dividends now that the community is starting to open back up. But I really do, we feel that we're forecasting Q4, the end of the year, to really be down about 40%. So we're hoping to retain and get back to about 60% of revenue of what we were forecasting. So that's great. But it's different here. We're in Florida. It's hot. And we do everything differently here. It's just
I'm learning.
Right.
I'm new to Miami, so I'm learning that. I just moved
everything's
from
different
DC,
here.
so I'm learning that everything is different here.
And what's really interesting, more than anything else that we're finding, is that we're taking all of these precautions to make certain that we're delivering a safe event to the consumer. And you see people as they arrive at these events, and granted they're smaller, they're groups of people that know one another, but you see a small percentage of the folks show up with the face masks. Well, within about 5 minutes, they're almost shamed out of them, and they jump off the face mask. The social distancing is over. It's just people want to come back together, and it's unbelievable. I think the human force is powerful, and people are just drawn to one another. So I'm hopeful that we get a great vaccine, because I hate seeing people dying that don't need to die. And I'm just hoping that, that there's some great changes that happen. But I'm also, desperate for our great industry to come back and come back strong.
I think you had brought up, Warren, the point about social channels, and I want to ask Whitney, Lee, and Deanna, you all also, so much of your business is clients, and a lot of the times it's these smaller businesses. What are you saying to them in terms of just advice on how they need to be pivoting, whether that's on the design piece, with you, Deanna, or Whitney with the public relations, marketing with Lee? Like, what are you kind of sharing with these businesses, like to an Ida, for instance, about like how she needs to be pivoting during this time?
Is that for me or for one of the other ladies?
One of our PR, Whitney or Lee.
Yeah, I can jump in on that. One of the biggest clients that I'm working with this year is the 2020 census. And so the census, as a lot of y'all know, a lot of the association with it is someone coming to your door to do the count, to see who is in your household. And this year is the first time that the conversation was online. There was a possibility to be able to fill out the census online, and we expected that to do fairly well, but we've seen those numbers really jump. Combination just because people are just more interested in using technology, and then of course we had to suspend operations of people going door to door. And so the conversation with the client has really been, we had a number of big events planned, and we had these enumerators going out door to door for people. And the conversation has been, how can we instead bolster up our online presence instead? What can we be doing in advertising? What can we be doing with our partners that had all of these in-person events planned, but instead talking about what they can do to pivot and then making it a positive as well, because at first it seemed really difficult. We all went through that. Like, what? Like, stuff is closed and canceled. And like, we all were like, we didn't know what to do. And then you take a beat and then you figure it out. And sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes these Zoom calls are awful. Sometimes, whatever. It's like, those are learning opportunities, and trying to think of what the big picture is, and not getting stuck on the small and mundane. But always being, open, acceptable, and celebrating when we did well. So now our story is we are up, many percentage points of people filling out their census online. So celebrating that story and using it to keep the momentum forward.
I love a good segue. I've been telling my clients really the same thing. Being a digital marketer, I always say take it online, but especially with having the predominance of hospitality clients, so restaurants, bars, nightclubs, even partially federal buildings, like right down to, catering companies, chefs, things like that. Across the board with the food industry has been super hit, and nobody really knows how to navigate it. But one thing that those who can, first and foremost, I always tell them to pay their employees. I think before they pay somebody like me. And I've done a little bit of in-kind work for my clients as well, because I know they've been there for me, and I've been there through them. But when they ask me what to do next, largely it comes to bringing that ability to create ROI behaviors online, on your website, and give people the opportunity to spend money right then and there. Because people, you have to really, in addition to pivoting, you have to examine how human behavior and consumer behavior has changed and evolved over time. How people are making purchase decisions, especially because people are quarantined, have all this time in the world to search. I mean, things are going viral more quickly than ever. So it's really important that when you have people come to your page, it's not enough to just put out social media content or a cool video or send an email blast. Really, it needs to be a hybrid of activities that work together to produce a phenomenal product. But you want to ultimately give people the opportunity to spend money with you on your site. And online ordering, one of my catering client, for example, we just added an entire home ordering suite, so people can go and get contact-free delivery food, and it's delicious, straight to their door. And that was a labor of a long time of love, really coding all of those products, because typically before that, most of the clients wouldn't have wanted to upgrade to an e-commerce platform. It wasn't really necessary. But now just the opportunity to seize upon people's attentions and the way that they're making purchase decisions has been one of the best pieces of advice I can give to my clients. And it's not always easy. I've had a lot of clients who stopped for a couple of months during the shutdown, and then have just started to reopen things with the phase 1 reopening in Virginia and DC. So it's really, but then they started back up with me as well. But it's really taking that onto an online platform.
And if I
That's
can
a good
add,
point. Yeah, Deanna, I was going to ask you to just chime in on products and how that's going.
yeah, if I can, I'm
viral.
so sorry for all the technical issues today, but thank you so much for having me here today. I want to chime in on that last conversation, and then I can do a quick little pivot to products. But most of my clients in my creative direction business are B2B, and I still have a couple. I think initially, I saw a huge decrease in client requests and inquiries. And then as things started to pick back up again, we started moving along, and it was just a matter of waiting for another organization or another client to be able to move before we could move. But I still also have several different clients where the springtime is our number one fundraising time. And we were really unsure what we would do in terms of fundraising. And I just reminded them, we can quickly move this online. Let's do a quick pivot. You have a captive audience. Keep that in mind. You have a captive audience. If we do some storytelling, we might even be able to raise more money than we typically would if people had to travel to get here. And, there's several other events that we're in competition with throughout the season. In the last 2 months, my client has raised more online through storytelling than they did in the last 2 galas that, benefit dinners that we would typically have over the last 2 years. And we are just using that to sort of gain momentum to help us throughout the end of the year until our giving season as well. And with regard to products, my heart goes out to so many people that were brick and mortar solely and did not have an online presence or wasn't utilizing some sort of fulfillment. I call it my pandemic pivot. I launched a new collection called the Common Purpose Collection. It took some time, between social media strategy adjustments and then also advertising strategy adjustments. The last 3 months have actually been the best of the last 5 years that we've had. And I think the biggest issue that we're having right now is fulfillment. And that's just literally getting the items out the door fast enough. But I think if you're honest and you're vulnerable and you're very direct and you're letting folks know we have a teeny tiny team, we're trying to keep everyone healthy and safe. We promise you these items are coming to you. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your extended patience. And everyone's been incredibly receptive and welcoming. And we really don't have any place to go. So they've also been fairly patient, thankfully, too.
Ida, do you feel the same on your end when it comes to getting your orders out, just what's been happening with how you're moving in this time and space?
Yeah, definitely. We've kind of had the same problem, like not being able to get packages out fast enough. May was our highest sales month in the history of Evil Queen. So like once we were able to open back up, it was insane, which is good, but I still feel like we're a little bit behind from having to be shut down. So yeah, that's the thing. It's like I don't have that many employees, and now we have a huge influx of orders, and we're trying to catch up from, you know, being shut down for 2 months. So, but just like you said, just keeping your customers informed is so important. People appreciate transparency and vulnerability from business owners, and I think a lot of companies don't do that enough. So when you're, you know, show everyone that you're human and you're trying your best,
Yeah.
people are receptive to that. So yeah, but same, it's just order fulfillment is taking longer for sure.
So kind of off topic here, I've been biting at the bit to find out this piece of information. Ryan, what is happening to movies? Where are they going? Award shows, I need them. What's going on?
Please.
When do I get
Tell me.
Searching for those answers right now too. I mean, from what the industry's doing right now, just what everyone else is saying, everything's going to move online in some direction or another. Film festivals are moving online. I think the one challenge is films that don't have a release yet. That's been challenging just because it's so easy to screen grab anything on the screen, where that part hasn't really been figured out yet, even by festivals that I'm in touch with now. A lot of things are after they launch and then they'll show at a festival. So that's kind of a new pivot that people are doing with just how you market something. Sometimes more so after the fact than before, just due to piracy concerns. And then award shows, I mean, I have clients that are, well, hopefully, knock on wood, be nominated for Emmys coming up, and they've already announced the creative arts ones are just moving entirely online. So it's just trying to figure out, I mean, getting clients on social media, or if they are more active, is the most important thing right now, because it's just been a real hit, that fact that there's no in-person events anymore where you normally generate publicity and get notes out there. It's really about almost doing it yourself, or pairing with another platform where you could do an IG Live with either distributor or a production company entity to raise awareness that way. That's a big pivot here. And then on the production side, a lot, my company that I work with, Jane Doe Films, they specialize in documentaries. A lot what we're doing now is, since everyone is in the Zoom culture, where we're actually sending out camera people to do interviews with, that could be done via Zoom with a very, very minimal crew. So people are recording themselves to keep production going, and it's pretty seamless. A lot of other productions are doing it right now. I know you could kind of, a lot of people are watching shows like Disney sing-alongs, and that's how they're done right now too, where it's really communicating clearly with talent, how to use this technology that they've probably never interacted with before, because there's always someone else there to use it and guide it, and then having them be able to light it, doing things virtually. It's almost like a virtual photo shoot through FaceTime to get those things achieved and done. But every day it's a new adventure, seeing what the landscape's like for all this.
It's no longer fluid. I call it, it's liquid now. It's just,
exactly.
You know, yeah.
Yeah, but the one good thing is everyone has time on their hands right now. So I do feel like it's easier to get things pushed along. It's even on the PR side when it comes to getting interview set up for the film that I'm doing right now, On the Record. Just because everyone has some sense of availability, where things that could take weeks before can now, I mean, tomorrow it's like could be set up. So there's definitely advantages to right now, and just how easy it is to communicate.
Great. Well, we're going to go ahead and open it up to our attendees. Rebecca's going to bring them all into the room with us so that they can ask some questions, and we can kind of just have a collaborative conversation about what everybody's thinking about. So let's just give her a second to click everybody over so that they can join us. All right, does anyone, you can either throw it in the chat, or if you want to unmute yourself, you can go ahead and ask our panelists a question. I think I had this person muted. Sorry. Oh, still adding folks. Sorry, guys. 1 second. Okay. We're all here. Okay. If anyone has a question, feel free to unmute yourself or add it in the chat. Well, I definitely had a question for you, Charles, just about seeing as you're in the political space and more on the fundraising side, but how is it affecting your clients when it comes to what's going on now with the Black Lives Movement? Is that being brought into conversations with your existing clients as you're moving forward with, you know, plans for the rest of the year? You know, where is it, or not at all? Just kind of like how's that affecting things?
You know, it's half and half. There's the physical side of things, and then there are the mission driven things. I think, you know, DC has been experiencing a lot of civil action in places where I live in downtown. So you have physically people coming together in a way that they have not for the last 3 months, because everybody's been on quarantine lockdown. But on a mission side of it, I think everybody is starting to actually look at how the conversation around police accountability, police brutality, you know, the conversation about community-based policing, like, and the relationships of those who govern versus the ones who are governed by, it's starting to happen. So you're really seeing actually, so it's a national movement, but it's prompting community conversations. And that pivot we're seeing from top to bottom, I mean, what's moving through Congress, and then also within nonprofits and organizations. This is the hard distinction. So, you know, just like when coronavirus first started, like every organization you had ever done business with decided to send you an email telling you about, like, what is our position? How are we going to protect you against coronavirus? It feels like every organization that I've done business with is telling me about what their commitment is to social justice and try to reduce inequality. So I think that's a context and a distinction that we need to have. You know, it's more than, oh, we're going to revisit our policies and then give some of our profit. Like, I think in some of my clients and on the nonprofit and the political side, it's what is our diversity mix amongst our C-suite? What is our diversity outreach to try to recruit more people who come from disadvantaged backgrounds or non-traditionally represented backgrounds into our executive hiring, you know, pipelines? Like, it's not like, oh, you know, who are we writing a check to buy like our offsets for diversity, but like, what are we doing to actually encourage long-standing systemic change in hiring, promotion, leadership opportunities, and mentorship? And that's, I think, you know, unfortunately, one of the lost messages that I'm seeing with some of the nonprofits that I work with. It's like, okay, let's just try to do a quick fix versus a longer term examination. And this is, you know, this doesn't have a political tinge to it. I deal with mostly conservative clients, but I see it happening. It's a societal thing where, like, okay, let's just, you know, virtue signaling isn't reserved for one party versus another. It really is a forced reexamination. And I think that we're seeing, you know, short-term effects, but the big question is this going to be susceptible to the traditional American motto of, you know, it's a big thing today, and then a month from now, we're not even talking about it? And that's the question, is how do we keep these conversations going so this does not slide out of the American consciousness? You know, like somebody else on this call was saying, was like, oh, you know, 5 minutes after we were in like total lockdown, people were just ripping off their masks at the first opportunity. It's like, okay, well, okay, that's not how we're supposed to be doing this. And the same thing about, like, how do we keep these conversations going about diversity and equality and equity, and looking at, addressing these long-term systemic things that we can do from my side, a markets-based perspective, to help reduce inequality. Long answer, short question. Sorry.
Great.
Agreed. Yeah, I think for all of us here, investing our resources in things that not only help the time being, but can also withstand the test of this and keep us going through through hopefully the rest of our life cycle of our businesses. Whitney, can you share with us, I know that you have lots of clients and you kind of direct them in different ways to promote themselves. What are some outlets, some things that small businesses and entrepreneurs should be doing, or organizations that they should be partnering with at this time to help bolster what they're already doing?
Yeah, you mean particularly in support of the Black Lives Matter movement, Seven?
Yeah, Black Lives Matter, but also like on a whole right now, as things are kind of difficult for everyone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it really goes back to what their core values are. And so before making a decision about, just putting out a statement or retooling what their business is going to look like in a more virtual space, it's like, okay, well, let's go back to what your core values are. Like, one of my clients is a specialty waxing studio right outside of DC, in Bethesda for one location, and in Fairfax in Virginia. And so obviously they had to close down their waxing studio. It'll be opening up soon. But a core of their brand, it started by these two sisters, and the core of their brand is really offering sisterly advice. And so when they had to go offline of offering services, they still were just as hard or even doubling down about offering sisterly type advice to their customers and clients. So I know even outside of just what their like personal, outside of their social media, they like were direct messaging their long-term customers and be like, what can we help you with? Obviously on the beauty side, but if there's something else, like if there's some other kind of conversations. And I know that's going a long way with their customers because they tapped into what their core value was. So it's like, you know what, we're not going to be making money. Yeah, we're selling some products on our website. That's part of it to keep us afloat, but we're tapping into what our core messaging is and making sure that's exuded in all that we're doing, whether it's figuring out how to stay afloat in COVID-19, whether it's standing with the Black Lives Matter movement. It's, we're staying true to who we are. And that's really what I'm advising clients to look at your mission and then decide what your action is going to be.
Great. I've got a question here from Nora. A lot of organizations that have reiterated their commitment to social justice have seen backlash from former employees and clients based on past practices. Do you think that the internal accountability will be held in the long term? And then what advice would you give to these organizations that may be feeling pressure? Anybody can answer that.
I think everybody's really feeling a ton of pressure right now. And nobody really knows, it's really hard to comfort people, especially when they've been through very traumatic experiences. And like everybody else has really gotten to, I think, being true to the heart of your brand. And if you could envision if your brand was a person, how would you connect to somebody that was hurting on this? And I've kind of gone with my clients, responding on an individual basis, based on, what that individual client's needs are. All of them, I'm happy to report, have been very supportive of all the movements that have been going on and have been really taking COVID seriously. But you really want to make sure that you watch your words because people are paying attention more than ever. But I think one of the biggest mistakes that you could make is failing to say something or address something. I always recommend that my clients respond to, well, it's good for social media algorithms anyways, but to respond to any comments or feedback that are left on their posts, but especially reviews, even if it's a simple thank you, just to keep the conversation going. It's deemed more popular. But even if it's a negative comment, it's a really good opportunity for a business to take advantage of the conversation about themselves and to dominate the conversation about themselves instead of letting other people kind of dictate how that brand is being interpreted by maybe, and a certain post or something like that. It really, by kind of creating a conversation and a dialogue, and social media is great for that, it really allows a brand to show who the person is, if that makes sense. It's like the person behind a very intent, like a non-person thing, but to show something that somebody can connect with, and that it's real and it exists, and it's not just a corporate sort of entity.
I think it's really important also that we remember that at the end of the day and at the beginning of the day, we're all humans. And so it's not about what you're posting for an Instagram story or an Instagram post, or what you're putting on your website. It's really about how you're treating human beings, especially at this moment, Black people, Black men, Black women, Black children, in your organizations, in your C-suites, how you're affecting and dealing with paid family leave, and how you're also dealing with the mental fatigue of this moment. I strongly believe in the belief-driven consumer. That is essentially why my business, District of Clothing, has continued over the last 5 years. And this community of consumers is only going to continue to grow. We've seen that. I deeply hope and pray that this is much more than just a moment. And I think that these businesses will continue to see that the belief-driven consumer is going to continue to hold them accountable, as they should.
Did you say belief-driven consumer? Is that the term you use? I like
yes.
that. Yeah. I like thinking of it that way.
I feel like I've seen that a lot.
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Dee.
I was just going to say, we've seen, companies like REI take the lead on this. We've seen companies like Nike take the lead on this. And I think they're also, and this is well beyond, just what's happening in this last month or so. But we have to continue to take that a step forward, because if you stand with Black women, or if you believe Black Lives Matter, it's not just about what's happening in the street with officers and police officers. It's also about how they're able to take good care of themselves and their families, and to be able to build legacies to go beyond that. So again, I really strongly believe in the belief-driven consumer. My entire community that's why I have a side hustle. It's because our community members share a bond around dreaming and doing and inspiring action and supporting self-love and encouraging progression. And I think that as companies continue to move forward and really reckon with what's happening, not just in America, but in their boardrooms, they'll realize that their business is surrounded around humans who are both working for them and somehow participate in purchasing whatever it might be, whatever their service offering is.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think I've seen a lot, Deanna, you talk about, your community, the consumers that, support District of Clothing. I see it a lot with Evil Queen, on, just social media, in terms of like the feedback that, your consumers are giving. And I think it kind of goes to Nora's point. Do you feel like you have, how is handling that pressure with dealing with what you have to, what you feel like you need to be doing or presenting, to your consumer base? I know that Ida, you had mentioned recently, I think folks had asked you to do a Black Lives Matter candle, and I think you had decided to do something a little different. Like, how do you navigate that?
Yeah, it's definitely interesting, but I don't feel pressure so much as I stand so firmly with my decision. And if you don't agree and you decide to unfollow me or never purchase from me again, then that's your loss. I stand for what I believe in, and I will do everything I can always to be that way. And so I wasn't afraid of, any kind of backlash with it. I want to do the best I can to help in any way that I can. I mean, while I'm still small, but yeah, like you were saying, people were asking me for a Black Lives Matter candle, and the thought just didn't sit right with me. I didn't feel like I should be the one to do that. So like you said, instead we are donating 100% of profits from one candle in particular every week to a different organization so that this will be a long lasting thing rather than just a candle that I can sell for a short amount of time and then potentially have to get rid of or whatever, discontinue for whatever reason. So that felt to me more like a long lasting change rather than just like we were saying, like we don't want this to be a moment. Like this is a movement ongoing forever until things actually change. So.
Mm-hmm. And Ryan, how are you seeing that? You know, we see, you know, as a filmmaker, you know, people were sending me the percentages of, you know, female directors or Black directors. And I'm like, trust me, I know it's, you know, a very low number. And are you feeling like in the conversations you're having in development, is it something that you guys are continuing to work on? Obviously on the record, you know, focused on, you know, a lot of women of color and sharing their voices and their stories, but are you feeling like in the entertainment industry, do you think we're seeing a change there, or do you feel like, you know, these numbers are just going to kind of stay the same?
I mean, I sure as hell hope that there's a major sea change. I mean, it's been a long time coming, and I think as long as there's pressure on these decision makers, that there will be a change. I mean, there has to be. I feel very lucky and privileged to be working at a company like Jane Doe Films, where Amy and Kirby are making films like On the Record, which is the first documentary I could think of in a while where every single voice in it is a Black female voice except one person, and putting people not only on screen but behind the screen in those positions to help with blind spots and make sure these stories are told to the fullest. With the whole movement going on right now, I think a big thing for people to think about and analyze, because I know I had this conversation with different clients, is are you in a place where you should be contributing to the conversation or in a place to be elevating voices that should be heard? So it's been a really interesting moment for people to really realize and reflect. Are they actually someone that has something contributive to share right now, or can they give their massive following to someone that has a voice that should be uplifted, that could do this talking better than they can? So it's been an interesting time. I'm really happy to see the amount of people that have realized that their voice shouldn't be the loudest one anymore, and they can give that microphone to someone else right now. And I think that will be something that is ongoing. It isn't just of the moment. It feels very needed and real, and that there's no going back right now. It's interesting releasing a film during a pandemic and a movement. So
and we're seeing that really, I think, awesomely, especially on Instagram. We're seeing, you know, people with extreme followings, like insane followings. They're spending their privilege and they're amplifying other voices. I think the first that kind of comes to mind is Lady Gaga, who has, I don't know, 100 million or 150 million followers. And we're also seeing that from recently, I think it was called the hashtag share the mic, or share the mic move day or something like that, where white women with very, very, very large followings on Instagram gave their pages over to other people to help them amplify whatever it is that their work was at that time.
Yeah. Like, we've got a lot of work to do, but I am really hopeful and excited to see that we're working, and it seems like it's something that's happening collectively and as a you know, as a community, even globally. So I'm certainly in a place of hope, you know, during this time. But just wanted to thank our panelists for joining us today. I know that you all are super busy during this time, so thank you so much for just sharing. We're going to send in our recap email all of your guys' socials so that people can get in touch with you in case they have, you know, any additional questions or just want to kind of connect. If you can hang out, we have the link for our roundtable and happy hour that's going to be starting in 15 minutes. So if you can join us, we're going to learn how to make a little cocktail, do a little dancing. It's actually Deanna's birthday DJ. He's really great. So I'm looking forward to that. But the link is in the chat if you wanted to join us. And for everyone else, we'll see you in about 15 minutes.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
everybody.
Bye. Thanks for having me.
Thank you guys.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.